Ancient Greece, the rise of a civilization. Imagine a young society scattered across rugged mountains and scattered islands, constantly threatened by invaders and struggling to survive. How did these fragmented communities transform into one of history's most influential civilizations, a society that pioneered democracy, created timeless art, and laid the groundwork for modern science and philosophy? This is the story of ancient Greece, a journey of resilience, innovation, and a legacy that still shapes our world today. Did you know the civilization of ancient Greece lasted over 1,000 years, longer than the entire history of the United States? Stay with us as we explore the pivotal moments, visionary leaders, and defining conflicts that led to the rise of this remarkable civilization, from the birth of democracy to the spread of Hellenistic culture. Before we begin, subscribe for more deep dives into ancient history. And as you watch, tell us in the comments which part of Greece's evolution fascinates you the most. The birth of ancient Greece. While Egypt and Mesopotamia built mighty empires, something equally transformative was stirring in the Aegean. Around 2000 BCE, small, isolated farming communities began settling across the Greek mainland and islands. This would become the cradle of Western civilization. Early Greeks were drawn to the region's fertile valleys and coastlines, ideal for agriculture, fishing, and eventually trade. These modest settlements slowly expanded, developing social structures and engaging in cultural exchanges with neighboring regions. As they connected more frequently, a distinct Greek identity began to take shape. Trade routes linked the mainland to nearby islands and foreign civilizations, fueling economic growth and spreading ideas. Greece's geography played a key role in its development. Mountains divided the land into isolated pockets, giving rise to independent city-states like Athens, Sparta, and Corinth. At the same time, the extensive coastline and countless islands encouraged exploration and maritime trade, balancing isolation with connection. A shared language emerged, with regional dialects that helped spread stories, ideas, and beliefs. Greek mythology flourished, rich tales of gods, heroes, and moral lessons that helped unify the culture and pass down values. Early Greek societies were organized by clans and tribes, often led by warriors or chiefs believed to have divine favor. Over time, these social systems evolved into the political models that would later define the classical Greek world. The concept of arete, excellence, and personal achievement became central to Greek culture. It drove everything from athletics and warfare to philosophy and the arts. In art and architecture, geometric patterns gave way to more naturalistic forms, laying the groundwork for the classical masterpieces that would follow. By 1600 BCE, the stage was set for two powerful civilizations to emerge, the Minoans and the Mycenaeans, who would build on these foundations and propel Greece toward its golden age. The Minoan and Mycenaean civilizations. As ancient Greek culture began to blossom, two dominant forces rose from the Bronze Age, the Minoans and the Mycenaeans, each leaving an indelible mark on Greek history. The Minoans, based on the island of Crete, thrived from around 2700 to 1450 BCE, named after the legendary king Minos. This advanced civilization built elaborate palaces, like the famous Knossos, featuring multiple stories, colorful frescoes, and even early plumbing systems. The Minoans became powerful maritime traders. Their central location allowed them to connect Greece, Egypt, and the Near East, exporting olive oil, wine, and fine crafts, while importing luxury goods like gold, ivory, and copper. They developed a mysterious script called Linear A, which still hasn't been fully deciphered. Their artwork shows scenes of nature, festivals, and daily life, notably lacking war imagery, suggesting a relatively peaceful society. But their golden era ended abruptly around 1450 BC, likely due to a volcanic eruption, followed by invasion or internal collapse. As the Minoans declined, the Mycenaeans rose, dominating the Greek mainland from 1600 to 1100 BCE. The Mycenaeans were a warrior culture known for their fortified cities and powerful kings. Their most famous city, Mycenae, gives them their name. They borrowed heavily from Minoan culture, adopting their architecture, religious symbols, and even adapting their writing system into Linear B, an early form of Greek that was deciphered in the 1950s. Unlike the peaceful Minoans, the Mycenaeans celebrated war, conquest, and heroism, values reflected in epic tales like the Iliad and the Odyssey, which were inspired by this era. The Mycenaeans, power, wealth, and legacy. In the heart of Bronze Age Greece, the Mycenaean civilization rose to dominance, defined by its warrior kings and grand fortress palaces. These leaders ruled from heavily fortified citadels, like the iconic Lion Gate at Mycenae, symbols of both architectural prowess and military might. The Mycenaeans excelled in metallurgy, crafting intricate gold jewelry and advanced bronze weapons. Their society was rigidly hierarchical, led by elites who controlled land, labor, and warfare. Though they lived centuries before the classical Greek age, the Mycenaeans deeply influenced later Greek culture and mythology. Many of the epic tales that shaped Greek literature, like the Iliad and the Odyssey, are believed to be rooted in Mycenaean history. Even the legendary Trojan War may reflect actual military campaigns from this era. But despite their power, both the Minoan and Mycenaean civilizations collapsed around 1200 BCE during a widespread upheaval known as the Bronze Age collapse. The causes remain debated, possibly a mix of natural disasters, invasions, and internal unrest, but the impact was profound, plunging Greece into centuries of decline. The Greek Dark Ages and rise of the Polis. The fall of Mycenaean palaces led to a period of cultural and economic decline. The Greek Dark Ages, lasting from about 1100 to 800 BCE. Writing systems vanished, cities were abandoned, and long-distance trade networks broke down. Yet even in this darkness, transformation was underway. Without centralized kingdoms, power shifted to smaller, kin-based communities. Leadership moved from warrior kings to local chieftains and aristocratic families. This decentralization of power would lay the groundwork for something revolutionary: the rise of city-states, or polis. While the economy shrank, new iron technology began to spread, harder and more durable than bronze. Iron tools and weapons improved farming and warfare and became more widely available, empowering common citizens and not just the elite. Gradually, as communities stabilized and trade resumed, Greek society evolved. By the 9th century BCE, a new political structure emerged: the polis, an independent, self-governing city-state centered around a fortified town and a shared civic identity. Each polis had its own laws, institutions, and customs. This innovation would define Greek political life for centuries, leading directly to some of history's most influential systems of governance, including democracy. The birth of democracy in Athens. As the polis system matured, Athens emerged as a leader in political experimentation, eventually pioneering a radical idea: rule by the people. In the early days, Athens was ruled by kings. Over time, power shifted to a narrow aristocracy, wealthy landowners who governed through an oligarchy. But by the 7th century BCE, tensions erupted. Economic inequality soared. Many common Athenians were trapped in debt slavery, forced to farm aristocratic land to survive. Social unrest threatened the city's stability. The first major step came in 621 BCE, when the lawmaker Draco wrote Athens' first legal code. Though notoriously harsh, Draco's laws created a written standard, replacing arbitrary rule with a rule of law. In 594 BCE, Solon, a respected statesman, was appointed archon to reform Athenian society. He canceled debts, abolished debt slavery, and restructured political participation. Solon divided citizens into 4 property-based classes, allowing even the poorest, the vites, to participate in assemblies and courts. His reforms planted the first real seeds of political inclusiveness. However, instability persisted. In 561 BCE, Pisistratus seized power and became a tyrant. Though in ancient Greece, tyrant simply meant a ruler outside constitutional norms. Surprisingly, his rule and that of his sons saw continued reforms, weakening aristocratic control and strengthening civic institutions. The final and most decisive transformation came in 508 BCE, with the reforms of Cleisthenes. Often called the father of Athenian democracy, Cleisthenes reorganized the population into 10 new tribes that mixed social classes and regions, diluting aristocratic influence and forging a unified Athenian identity. These reforms marked the beginning of true democracy, or demos kratos, rule of the people. All male citizens could debate, propose laws, and vote in the assembly, making decisions that shaped the future of the city-state. Of course, by modern standards, Athenian democracy had limits. Women, slaves, and foreigners were excluded from political life. Still, it was an unprecedented step in human history, a system where power flowed from the citizens, not a king. Governance, the Ionian Revolt, and the road to war. Athens' democratic experiment was just the beginning of Greece's impact on the ancient world. As Greek influence expanded, it inevitably collided with another rising power, the Persian Empire. But how did a revolt in a far-flung province become the spark that ignited one of the most consequential conflicts in ancient history? The spark in Ionia. Around 500 BCE, the region of Ionia, a stretch of Greek city-states along the western coast of modern-day Turkey, found itself under Persian rule. Although the Persian kings allowed a degree of autonomy, resentment was growing. The Ionian Greeks longed for the independence enjoyed by their fellow city-states back on the Greek mainland. The fuse was lit by an unlikely figure, Aristagoras, the tyrant of Miletus. After a failed Persian-backed military expedition to conquer the island of Naxos, Aristagoras feared retribution from his Persian overlords. In a bold gamble for survival, and perhaps personal gain, he renounced his title and called for a revolt against Persian authority. His call to arms quickly spread. City after city in Ionia overthrew their Persian-appointed rulers and declared their independence. But the rebels knew they couldn't stand alone against the full force of the Persian Empire. They needed allies. Athens joins the fight. In 498 BCE, Aristagoras turned to the Greek mainland, seeking support. His appeals were rejected by Sparta, but in Athens, he found a willing partner. Energized by their new democracy and eager to support fellow Greeks, and perhaps to assert their own growing influence, the Athenians agreed to help. They sent a modest fleet, joined by ships from Eretria. This decision, seemingly minor at the time, would set in motion a chain of events that would alter history. The combined forces of the Ionian rebels, Athens, and Eretria launched a daring assault inland and burned the Persian city of Sardis, the capital of the satrapy of Lydia. Though they soon retreated, the symbolic impact was enormous. Darius responds. To Darius I, the Persian king, the burning of Sardis was more than an insult. It was a challenge to imperial authority. What began as a local uprising had now drawn in foreign powers. Darius vowed not only to crush the rebellion, but to punish Athens and Eretria for their interference. From this moment forward, Persia's conflict with the Greek world became inevitable. A wake-up call for Greece. Despite early momentum, the Ionian Revolt began to falter. The Persians, wielding the vast resources of their empire, slowly pushed back. By 494 BCE, the revolt was crushed. Miletus, the heart of the uprising, was destroyed, its population enslaved or deported. Other Ionian cities were brought back under Persian control, often with harsher oversight than before. But while the rebellion failed militarily, its legacy was far greater. For Persia, the revolt marked the beginning of a larger campaign, one that aimed to bring the Greek mainland into the empire. Darius began preparations for a full-scale invasion. For the Greeks, it was a wake-up call. The Ionian Revolt exposed the immense power of Persia and the vulnerability of the often divided Greek city-states. It revealed a clear truth. If they wanted to survive, they would have to unite. This realization would shape the coming years, as Greece prepared for the storm that was gathering, a clash between East and West, empire and freedom, that would decide the fate of the ancient world. The Persian Wars, unity against a common enemy. With the embers of the Ionian Revolt still smoldering, a new and even greater conflict loomed on the horizon. What followed was a decades-long struggle that would shape the destiny of Western civilization. The Persian Wars, a series of epic confrontations between the Greek city-states and the powerful Persian Empire, fought between 499 and 449 BCE. The first invasion, the Battle of Marathon. The first major clash came in 490 BCE, when King Darius I of Persia launched an invasion of mainland Greece. His goal: punish Athens for supporting the Ionian Revolt and assert Persian dominance over the rebellious Greek world. A Persian army landed on the plains of Marathon, just 26 miles from Athens. Vastly outnumbered, the Athenians, led by the skilled general Miltiades, chose to meet the enemy head-on. Against all odds, the Greeks achieved a stunning victory. Using superior tactics and the element of surprise, the Athenian hoplites overwhelmed the Persians and drove them back to their ships. The victory at Marathon shattered the myth of Persian invincibility and gave the Greek world a powerful sense of unity and purpose. According to legend, a messenger named Phidippides ran from Marathon to Athens to deliver the news, inspiring the modern marathon race. Xerxes' revenge, a second, greater invasion. But the Persian threat was far from over. Darius died soon after the defeat at Marathon, but his son, Xerxes I, was determined to finish what his father had started. In 480 BCE, Xerxes launched a massive invasion of Greece, this time with overwhelming force. Ancient sources claim that Xerxes' army numbered over 1 million men, though modern historians estimate the true figure to be much smaller. Still, it was one of the largest military expeditions the ancient world had ever seen. Faced with annihilation, the fiercely independent Greek city-states, normally rivals, did something extraordinary. They united. Athens and Sparta, longtime adversaries, joined forces to form the Hellenic League, a defensive alliance created to resist the Persian onslaught. This fragile but powerful coalition would prove critical in the battles to come. Thermopylae, a stand against the impossible. The first major land battle took place at a narrow mountain pass called Thermopylae. Here, a small Greek force led by King Leonidas of Sparta faced the full might of Xerxes' army. For 3 days, the Greeks held the pass, repelling wave after wave of Persian assaults. Though ultimately overwhelmed, their heroic stand bought valuable time for the rest of Greece to organize its defenses. Thermopylae became a symbol of bravery, sacrifice, and defiance, proof that even the greatest empire could be held back by courage and unity. Artemisium and the naval war. Meanwhile, at sea, the Greek and Persian fleets clashed at the Battle of Artemisium. Though the battle ended in a draw, it prevented the Persian navy from outflanking the Greek forces at Thermopylae, a critical strategic delay. However, with Thermopylae fallen, Athens was evacuated. The Persians entered the city and burned it to the ground. But the Athenians had a plan. The turning point, Battle of Salamis. Later that same year, the Greek fleet, led by Athenian general Themistocles, made a bold move. Using deception, Themistocles lured the much larger Persian navy into the narrow straits of Salamis, between the Greek mainland and the island of Salamis. In those confined waters, the heavier Persian ships were unable to maneuver effectively. The smaller, faster Greek triremes struck with devastating precision. The result, a crushing Greek naval victory. Salamis turned the tide of the war. Xerxes, fearing a full encirclement, withdrew the bulk of his forces back to Persia, leaving a smaller army behind in Greece. Final victory, the Battle of Plataea. The following year, in 479 BCE, the Greeks met the remaining Persian forces at the Battle of Plataea. This time, the full strength of the Hellenic League, with Spartans, Athenians, and other allies united, crushed the Persian army in a decisive battle. Shortly after, the Greek navy won another victory at Mycale, effectively ending Persia's ambitions in Greece. Aftermath: a new era for Greece. With the Persian invasion repelled, the Hellenic League went on the offensive. Athens, now rising in prominence, took the lead in liberating Greek cities in Ionia and the Aegean from Persian control. By 449 BCE, the long conflict officially ended with the Peace of Callias. The Persian Wars had proven that unity, strategy, and determination could overcome even the greatest of empires. More than just a military victory, the Persian Wars marked a turning point in Greek and world history. They safeguarded Greek independence, preserved the fledgling democracy of Athens, and set the stage for the Golden Age of Greece, a period of unparalleled achievements in art, philosophy, science, and politics. The philosophers, Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. How three minds shaped the Western world. While the Greek world was embroiled in political tension and warfare, another revolution was quietly unfolding, not on the battlefield, but in the streets of Athens. It began with a question, and it would transform human thought for millennia. This is the story of Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, three philosophers whose ideas became the foundation of Western philosophy, science, and ethics. Socrates, the gadfly of Athens. Our journey begins with Socrates, born around 470 BCE. He wasn't a nobleman or scholar in the traditional sense. He wrote no books, opened no schools, and claimed no special knowledge. But not everyone appreciated his probing mind. His relentless questioning of tradition and authority made him many enemies in a city already under political strain. In 399 BCE, Socrates was brought to trial, charged with corrupting the youth and impiety. He was found guilty and sentenced to death by drinking hemlock. Even in death, he remained defiant, choosing principle over survival. His death, however, was not the end. It was the beginning of a new philosophical legacy. Plato, the architect of idealism. Among Socrates' students, none would be more influential than Plato, born around 428 BCE into a noble Athenian family. Deeply impacted by the trial and execution of his teacher, Plato dedicated his life to preserving and expanding Socrates' ideas. He founded the Academy, often considered the first institution of higher learning in the Western world. Aristotle, the master of reason. But Plato's most famous student would take philosophy in a new direction. Aristotle, born in 384 BCE in the Macedonian city of Stagira, came to Athens at age 17 and studied at Plato's Academy for 2 decades. Unlike his teacher, Aristotle was less concerned with ideal worlds and more focused on the one we live in. He was a polymath, a philosopher, scientist, biologist, and logician. He studied everything from animals and plants to politics and ethics. He laid the foundations of modern logic, introducing the syllogism, a method of deductive reasoning still taught today. Aristotle emphasized empirical observation, gathering data, analyzing causes, and drawing conclusions. His work shaped disciplines ranging from biology and physics to rhetoric and metaphysics. In politics, Aristotle explored different types of government, warning of their strengths and weaknesses. In ethics, he introduced the idea of the golden mean, that virtue lies in balance between extremes. Courage, he said, is the mean between cowardice and recklessness. Later in life, Aristotle became tutor to Alexander the Great, ensuring that his ideas would spread far beyond Athens, across the known world. A legacy that shaped the world. Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. 3 thinkers, 3 visions, 1 enduring legacy. Socrates taught us to question everything. Plato taught us to envision a higher truth. Aristotle taught us to observe, reason, and seek balance. Together, their ideas laid the groundwork for centuries of philosophy, science, political theory, and ethics. From the halls of medieval monasteries to the pages of modern constitutions, their influence endures. Legacy, The impact of ancient Greece on modern civilization. As the political power of ancient Greece declined, its cultural influence only grew stronger. From the buildings we construct to the principles guiding our governments and schools, the legacy of ancient Greece continues to shape the modern world. But just how deep does this influence run? Democracy, a Greek invention. One of ancient Greece's most profound and lasting contributions is the concept of democracy. In classical Athens, citizens participated directly in decision-making, a radical idea at the time. Though most modern democracies are representative rather than direct, the Athenian model laid the foundation for modern systems of governance. The Greek emphasis on individual rights, equality before the law, and civic duty helped shape political thought from the Enlightenment to the present day. The core idea, that power belongs to the people, was born in the assembly halls of Athens. Philosophy, foundations of Western thought. The legacy of Greek philosophy is impossible to overstate. Thinkers like Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle shaped the way we explore ethics, logic, politics, and the very nature of reality. Socrates introduced the method of inquiry through questioning, now called the Socratic method, still widely used in education to stimulate critical thinking. Plato's theory of ideal forms laid the groundwork for philosophical and mathematical reasoning. Aristotle's systematic exploration of logic, science, and politics provided the blueprint for entire disciplines still taught today. Their ideas continue to influence modern ethics, law, education, and scientific inquiry. Architecture and art, timeless influence. Greek aesthetics continue to define beauty, order, and proportion. The classical orders, Doric, Ionic, and Corinthian, are still used in architecture around the world. From the U.S. Capitol to university campuses, Greek-inspired design evokes authority, balance, and wisdom. The Greek ideal of harmony and proportion in sculpture and art continues to guide modern design and aesthetics across disciplines, from painting to photography to fashion. Literature and drama, the birth of storytelling. Greek literature gave rise to some of the most enduring stories in human history. Homer's epics, the Iliad and the Odyssey, remain central to literary tradition and are still widely read, studied, and adapted today. Greek tragedies by playwrights like Sophocles, Euripides, and Aeschylus introduced complex characters, moral dilemmas, and dramatic structure that still define modern storytelling. The Greek concept of catharsis, emotional release through drama, continues to inform how we experience film, theater, and fiction. Science and mathematics, the roots of rational inquiry. The Greeks laid the foundations of modern science and mathematics. Euclid's work on geometry still forms the basis of the subject taught in schools today. The Pythagorean theorem remains a cornerstone of mathematics. Early astronomers like Aristarchus proposed heliocentric theories long before Copernicus. The Greek approach to knowledge, based on observation, hypothesis, and logic, inspired what we now call the scientific method. Medicine, from myth to method. Greek medicine, especially through Hippocrates, marked a shift from supernatural explanations to natural causes of illness. Hippocrates emphasized clinical observation, diagnosis, and treatment based on reasoning, not myth. His ethical code, the Hippocratic Oath, still guides the medical profession today. Ancient Greek work in anatomy, physiology, and medical practice laid the foundation for modern healthcare. Language, myth, and culture. The Greek language has left a deep imprint on modern vocabulary, particularly in science, philosophy, medicine, and technology. Thousands of English words, like biology, democracy, and philosophy, trace their roots to Greek. Greek mythology continues to inspire literature, film, psychology, branding, and more. From the tales of Zeus and Athena to metaphors like the Achilles heel and Pandora's box, these myths offer universal themes and enduring symbols. A legacy that lives on. The influence of ancient Greece is everywhere, in our governments, our classrooms, our language, and even the way we think. The Though the Greek city-states fell long ago, their ideas remain alive and relevant, woven into the fabric of our modern civilization. From the Parthenon to the Constitution, from Aristotle's ethics to modern science, the Greek legacy endures, a timeless testament to the power of human thought.